Xbox Game Pass Game of the Month Club.
I'm Spencer.
And I'm Mark, that spells Spark.
Your spark of inspiration to explore Game Pass.
Charging sequence at 30%, 50%, Chief, 70%, 90%.
This is Spark Pass.
Hey everybody, it's Spencer from the Spark Pass podcast, and welcome to the last episode of the month of June, celebrating 1 full year of Spark Pass. I can't believe it's already been a year, so if you guys have been with us since the beginning or since just last month's episode, thank you for joining us on this journey. We're so glad to have you along with us. It's been a blast. I'm sure at this point you've probably listened to Mark's audio essay on Tunic, and if you haven't, stop this episode and go listen to it, because it's just stellar. Mark did such an amazing job on that audio essay, and I can try to live up to that episode in my own. Mark is a much better storyteller than I am. I realized that as I wrote the script for this, so please bear with me. I want to talk to you guys about Hellblade Senuas Sacrifice.
Welcome. You're safe with me. I'll be right here, nice and close so I can speak without alerting the others. Let me tell you about Senua. Her story has already come to an end, but now it begins anew.
Now, if you guys aren't familiar with what Hellblade is, Hellblade follows the character Senua as she journeys into Helheim to save the soul of her dead lover Dillion from the goddess Hela. But that's not the only thing that's going on in this. Senua suffers from a curse. This curse causes her to hear voices of spirits referred to as furies in her head. Now, in modern day, we know this is a form of psychosis. She is hearing auditory hallucinations, voices that aren't really there, telling her things that may or may not be true. And that's part of the game, is experiencing that as a player, whether that's something you've lived with yourself or not.
He knows she's getting closer.
He can feel her coming closer.
They're watching. She's getting closer.
They're watching.
The head.
They're watching. They're watching.
This is kind of the first place the game resonates with me. While I don't personally live with psychosis, I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder and depression. I can sort of put myself in Senua's shoes in this way, in trying to deal with something that I don't fully understand, but is happening in my own mind. Personally, I was 25 years old when I was finally diagnosed with these mental illnesses, and up until then, I had no idea why I felt the way I did. I just knew I felt that way, and others didn't seem to experience that. And that always just made me feel wrong or off, which now I learned is absolutely not the case. Ninja Theory, the developer of this game, worked extremely hard with mental health professionals to really show in a visual and audible way what it is like to live with psychosis. I won't get into all of it because there's a lot to talk about, but there's a 30 plus episode dev diary on YouTube that I 100% recommend you watch if you enjoy this game, or if you just like behind the scenes stuff of video games. And they go into how and why the team cared about this so much. To give you an idea of how much effort and work they put into this, the game so accurately depicts psychosis that fans started writing into Ninja Theory, letting them know they could use this game to show their loved ones and say, this is what it's like in my brain. This is what I've tried to explain to you all this time and couldn't put into words. The level of care and detail that went into mental health is just astounding to me. Okay, the heavy stuff is out of the way, guys. I felt it was important to share, but I do know talking about mental health can be a heavy topic for people and can be difficult. So thank you for bearing with me through that, even though we didn't get that deep into it. Now, for those of you who don't know, I've always been a very do-it-yourself person. I grew up in my local hardcore music community, which is basically all DIY. I've always been the person who says, if I can think of it, I'll bet you I can figure out how to do it. Now, is that always the case? Hell no. I get in way over my head on a weekly basis with some project that I can totally do. But I still keep trying things. And this is the second place where I can connect with this game. Less about the game itself, but more about the developer, Ninja Theory. So Ninja Theory created Hellblade with a similar mindset. The dev diary that I mentioned earlier goes really deep in on this. Like, I am talking real deep. So again, if you like behind the scenes stuff or just into DIY stuff, check it out. It's fantastic. I'll link it in the show description for you guys too. But they took a conference room in their studio and they turned it into a mocap studio. So a conference room where they would normally have business meetings and art meetings, whatever it might be, they decided to turn that into a mocap studio because they couldn't afford to do it a different way. After the initial actress cast to play Senua left the project due to budgetary issues, the team asked Melina Juergens to step in and do some tests for them in motion capture. Melina is a freelance photographer and video editor who at the time was working with a studio to do these behind-the-scenes shows like the dev diary and photography for Senua. After an initial test, Melina was asked to come back and act out a scene for the team, which led the team asking her to portray Senua in the game. Like, it doesn't get much more DIY than this, guys. Like, hey, you are already here. Can you try this for us? Oh, you did a really good job. Do you just want to do this for us? Like, this is so DIY, like independent filmmaking feel to it. It's fantastic, and I love it. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm really into. The scrappy people who are going to get by. They're going to make this damn thing no matter what it takes. And that's what happened here. Now, the difficult thing was Melina had never studied acting or had any acting experience prior to the game's development. So Melina leaned on personal experiences from her own life and connected her recollections of trauma and anxiety to Senua scenes. So again, we kind of roll it all back to connecting with this on a personal level from my own mental health experiences. That's what led me to create content. That's what's led me in the past to write music. It's led me to work on these kind of projects, you know? Knowing all of this information about the development, on top of how much the studio actually cared to learn about mental health and make sure it was shown accurately and tastefully, just connected with me on like every level. There's nothing about this that I wasn't into. Outside of that, the gameplay is pretty simple. You'll go through two main areas, solve some puzzles that are typically lining up a shape that you see in the world. The combat is very sword-based, relies on parrying and dodging a lot, and I mean a lot. That's actually how you're going to get the upper hand on most of your enemies, is by parrying and then attacking when their guard is down. You'll fight bosses, and then eventually you make your way to the final boss. But during all of this, you're seeing and hearing what Senua experiences in her mind. And you might say, Spencer, that's what every video game is. And I agree with you. But this game is showing you how difficult it can be to battle the enemy in front of you while also battling the enemy in your mind. If you're someone passionate about mental health, can relate to the scrappy DIY thought process of I'm going to do this and I'm going to figure it out myself, or if you just enjoy games that have some scary and horror art that aren't really a full-blown horror game, go check this one out. It's on Game Pass. Let me know what you think about it. And if you haven't, go back and check out all the other episodes we released this month to celebrate 1 year of Spark Pass. We have Mark's audio essay on Tunic, which again, just blew me out of the water, you guys. Mark did such an amazing job on that. If you haven't listened to it, and you only listen to one other thing, make it that one. Outside of that, we have our normal episode where we talked about bug snacks, and we have a breakdown of the Microsoft and Bethesda conference where we saw all the new games that are coming out and going to be coming to Game Pass. So guys, thank you again for 1 full year of Spark Pass, and thank you for listening to this episode. I hope to see you guys for many more in the future.